your biggest obstacle in life right now?
My biggest obstacle in life? Trump. Trump, absolutely. So
Do you wake up and think about him?
Yes, constantly, every day.
Do you go to sleep and think about him?
Yes, every day.
Are you in love with him?
I hate his guts.
It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
All right, guys, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It is Wednesday, October 30th in the year 2024. And in 1 week from right now, we will know or not know the results of the presidential election, and everything will be wildly different or totally the same. Until then, we're going to do a show, talk about some stuff, and see if we can make sense of this crazy world. Because I kept telling you all week, I've been saying, and I guess I've been saying it for probably the last 5 years, like the crazy just keeps getting ramped up. It's very rare that we get like a loosening of the system where suddenly things get like a little more settled, right? It always seems to go this way, not this way. And yesterday it just burst forth even more, not only more Nazi stuff, but now Biden with this garbage comment. And you can just feel we are in the thick of it now, guys. We are all in the whale together. We're in the carcass. We're fighting for air. We're fighting for resources, and we're just in it together. So get in, get ready, and let's do a show. As always, of course, post-game show, rubinreport.locals.com. And yeah, let's just dive in right now. The big story broke last night, as if we didn't have enough of the Democrats, and it's not just the Democrats, it's the entire media machine, it's the corporate press, it's print, it's TV, it's the entire freaking thing. As if we didn't have enough of them lying at the most extraordinary levels about the Trump MSG event and Trump being Hitler and the thing being a Nazi rally, a place where there were Orthodox Jews celebrating with Israeli flags and there were blacks for Trump and Hispanics for Trump and all the stuff. You know all that already. It was such a freaking joy fest. And I just have to say one more time, having been there, like I was there from before it started till after it ended. So to literally be at a place and then see the media reaction, it's one thing when we do this, when we all do this, right? We're all online watching things and you can see a clip and reaction to it and all of that. But to literally be there with so many people who were so joyous and happy to be Americans, and it was barely a political rally, it was a pro-America rally. And that's the thing they hate most. So to see the post reaction for it has been quite jarring, even for me. Well, if you thought that was crazy enough, right? And it was pretty damn crazy. Well, Joe Biden just exacerbated the craziness yesterday. You, I'm sure, have seen this already. This is absolutely wild. Joe Biden, around 7 p.m. last night, was on a Zoom call, and listen to this.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
All right, there's a couple things here. First off, he looks terrible. They've relegated him to Zoom calls. As always, he's muddled and stuttering and unsure of what he's saying. And you can almost see a moment there where he slightly tries to change what the sentence means, and we'll get to more on how the media is doing that in real time right in front of our eyes, and quite literally in this case, telling you not to see and hear what you just saw and heard. But before we do some more nuanced dissection of that, how about we show you that in slow motion?
Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
The only garbage I see out there is his supporters. Now, of course, the media, once that clip started going viral, and boom, it happened to be one of those things where I was actually sitting on Twitter at the moment, so I saw it within a minute of it going out. And then you can just see, for those of you that are the online types, you just know and you can see when something is just gonna zap through all the bullshit and just take over the internet. And that is one of those things. And then, of course, and I knew it while I was sitting there on the couch, I was like, how is the media going to try to spin this? Well, look at a couple of these headlines and then we'll dissect this further because it's super, super interesting. You know what? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, we'll do the headlines first. So first, from the AP, Biden suggests Trump supporters are garbage after comics insult of Puerto Rico. So, of course, they have to connect this to Trump. New York Times, Biden appears to insult Trump supporters as garbage, but quickly tries to clarify. In a posting on social media, President Biden said he was talking about racist language, not Trump supporters. He did call them all garbage, but okay. So you can see they're running cover. CBS News, supporters or supporters with an apostrophe? Biden comments about Trump garbage rally anger the GOP. So you can see they're already playing with the language. And then Washington Post, White House Trump campaign clash over whether Biden called Trump supporters garbage. The disputed remark came in response to racist remarks about Puerto Rico at a Trump rally in New York City. You cannot be racist, just to clarify, Washington Post, you cannot be racist about a country. You can be racist about people. But let's put that aside for a moment. You can already see they're whittling down. Was this about an apostrophe? And the way that they just make sure to connect it to Trump saying mean things, right? You guys get it. We've already illustrated this enough. All of us are constantly behind the curtain. We know that. Here's the media contradicting themselves over the rhetoric.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Basically calling Puerto Ricans trash.
The most repulsive racial jokes about Latinos.
Disgusting and hateful.
So incredibly crude.
Frankly, just too X-rated to play here.
Extremely vile so-called joke.
Extremely vile, X-rated. You can't play it on MSNBC where they call, or on CNN where they call people Nazis all day long. Of course, all of the secondary things that we showed you there beyond Biden himself, those were all the responses to the one joke that they did not like that started the MSG rally that was in an 8-hour show by an insult comic, but it's X-rated and we can't show that here. Absolutely insane. But you guys get it. You get the way the media will run cover. You get the way that no matter what the Democrats do, that they are the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys. However, as I said yesterday, in many ways, this is not an election of Trump versus Kamala. It's not an election of Republicans versus Democrats or conservatives versus liberals. It is an election, in essence, for reality. How many people are brainwashed by the machine still, and how many people still have a little bit of flickering independent thought in their mind? And I think there's more of us than are being brainwashed currently, and that's the tension that we're dealing with right now. But we know that there's an awful lot of them, and we shouldn't discount that. Of course, all of this garbage moment, and yes, he said that Trump's supporters, so he's talking about me, and he's likely talking about you, and he's talking about these fine people in this room, are garbage. It might remind you of a little misstep that Hillary had right before her election.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. But that other basket of people are people who feel the government has let them down, the economy has let them down, nobody cares about them.
As you guys, I'm sure, remember, in 2016, Hillary was the race was pretty tight the entire time, but was basically leading up until that point, within, a point or two. And most people point to that as the moment that really sort of supercharged and fueled the Trump insurrection in an electoral sense, because so many people were just put off by that. It's like, that's what you really think of us. You think because we think differently about the future of the country, or we have some, more traditional beliefs or whatever it might be, that we're racist and sexist and Islamophobic and everything else. Islamophobic, which is the most idiotic word you could possibly ever come up with. A phobia is an irrational fear. I would think that you feminists and you queers for Palestine should have a fear of Islam, because it's generally you guys that get beheaded first. But let's put that aside for a minute. What we may have gotten yesterday from Joe Biden, either intentionally, it's possible it's intentional because he does not like Kamala and she definitely threatened him with the 25th Amendment to make sure he would step down because he said he was still wanting to run and capable of running. That's exactly what he said to the lunatics of The View. The October surprise that we might have got here might have just been that last night. Listen to Vivek on Fox last night.
Look, here's the October surprise. It just arrived. This is the basket of deplorables moment. That's what Hillary Clinton said in 2016 that tanked her campaign. Well, that's the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris moment right now. I am a little bit more cynical about this one, Sean, in the following way. It might look like Joe Biden's usual cognitive deficits kicked in, but the reality is we know his family is secretly probably rooting for Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris, to win because they feel really vengeful about how they were treated. So if you're in their shoes, you know that kind of comment is actually going to tank Kamala Harris. So we're going to put those kinds of motivations to one side. But regardless, it is a welcome October surprise because let's take a big step back. What's going on here? The wheels are coming off the car. They're spiraling. And now you see the accusations of the other side being Hitler or piles of garbage. You're going to hear a lot about threats to democracy in the next week. They are flailing, Sean. They understand Americans are not falling for their trick anymore. Donald Trump has a record that he's running on. They're frustrated by it. And I think it's, in some ways, a beautiful thing for our side to watch this completely come undone and turn the page on this ugly chapter of our history.
Yeah, well said. And that is all completely correct. And it goes to my theory that as this thing gets tighter and closer right now, what can they do? Well, they can do the Nazi thing and they can do the Hitler thing and all that. And again, it will work for a certain amount of people, and that's very unfortunate. And we all have people in our lives that it's working on, and okay, fine. But what they can't do, and there's a reason they do it, because what they can't do is really point to policy. So you then have to basically say they're all racists or they're all garbage. And we should accept that. We actually, in a weird way, like I woke up this morning, I think I tweeted, the first thing I tweeted out this morning was, good morning, Nazis and garbage people. And it's like, I'll embrace that. Like I'll accept that's what you believe I am. I know that I'm not that, and words don't hurt me. So I'm going to be okay. And I think that's what you should take from this too, because what can Kamala do? You know, she gave this big speech, we'll show you some of it in a moment, at the mall in Washington last night, and she can't point to policy. How could she be able to point to policy? Her policy of helping you at the grocery store by government price controls, which comes right out of Soviet Russia, is that what you want? Or her policy on the border, which now basically just mimics the very same things she was telling you were racist when Donald Trump did them, which also would highlight her failure as the borders are. So they can't point to much of that. Oh my God, the Middle East is going so great. That Russia-Ukraine thing, it's fabulous. No, they can't point to anything. So all they can do is you're deplorables, you're garbage, you're racist, you're Hitler. And to Vivek's point, I just pray it is not working, and there's a lot of evidence that it's not. Joe Biden, who they obviously don't let hold a phone, and he does not tweet for himself or write any of these things or anything else. His account on Twitter tweeted this when they realized that they were getting some pushback. Earlier today, and this was at 9:31 p.m., there's just simply no chance he's even awake at that hour. Earlier today, I referred to the hateful rhetoric about Puerto Rico spewed by Trump's supporter at his Madison Square Garden rally as garbage, which is the only word I can think of to describe it. His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable. That's all I meant to say. The comments at that rally don't reflect who we are as a nation. So it's deflection, it's denial, et cetera, et cetera. Again, the most racist, quote unquote, racist thing that they got from an 8-hour Trump rally was an insult comic making fun of Puerto Rico, not of Puerto Rican people. That's the most racist thing they got. Then we hear Joe Biden call these people garbage. He knows goddamn well what he did. Sorry, but he does. And again, it's one of those things. You can either just accept the lie or you can realize that they're lying to you and then vote accordingly. Josh Shapiro, Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who the Democrats should have chosen as VP instead of lunatic Tim Walz, who's a crazy far lefty. Josh Shapiro, he's pretty much a marginal lefty, but he's not a lunatic. He also, I would say, largely not a lunatic for a Democrat. And he also is the governor of the most important swing state. He happened to be on CNN as this story was breaking. And even he, knowing how important his state is and his comments are right now, he could not defend Joe Biden.
Governor, first off, just What's your response to that comment from President Biden, where it sounds like he's calling Trump supporters there garbage?
Yeah, look, I had not heard that until now, Kaitlan, so I'm kind of giving you my fresh reaction to it. I would never insult the good people of Pennsylvania or any Americans, even if they chose to support a candidate that I didn't support.
Yeah, so that's big. That is a big moment because he's an important governor and not a totally freaking bananas lefty progressive lunatic who still remains a Democrat. I'm not saying he's great, but that's what he is. And remember, we're all being called Nazis while it is very obvious that the reason that he was not selected VP is because the base of the Democrat is wildly anti-Semitic and his last name is Shapiro. He is a Sabbath-observing Jew, and if there's nothing more they hate than that, then Bibi Netanyahu himself. Anyway, the media is now running in circles, making sure that you did not see what you just saw. As you know, I like showing you these panels on CNN where they have sort of 8 mental patients and then usually one conservative who has to clean it up. By the way, this guy, Ryan, what's his name? Ryan James Gerdusky, who we've showed you a couple clips of on CNN over the last couple of weeks, he just got fired. He was one of the 2 conservatives there. They fired him yesterday. That's a sidebar. But Scott Jennings, who we've shown you a bunch of clips of, who's doing a nice job, here he is pushing back against a guy by the name of Franklin Leonard. I don't know who he is, as he blames Biden's comment. You're not going to believe this. Yeah, it's the stutter. It's the stutter. Yeah.
Say though, Bakari, he was in his house, the White House. He was in his house doing this, and the reporting is that there are places that he can be useful, but he's not everywhere like you might expect a sitting president to be for his vice president.
I don't know that I would expect this president to be everywhere in this moment. I mean, look, Joe Biden has never been a big arena speaker. He's never been the most fluid speaker. And by the way, as someone who had a stutter growing up, it's very obvious to me that there's an apostrophe at the end of supporters there. He was referring to the garbage spewed by supporters, not simply the supporters themselves.
Let me just accept the most charitable framing of this, which you just gave. Yeah. Why is he sitting in front of a laptop at the exact same moment Kamala Harris is out on his backyard trying to give the closing argument to her campaign? What in the world is he doing? Now, I don't accept your framing of it personally because I actually do believe he, Harris, the Democratic Party, and most of their campaign do believe that half the country is garbage. They've also said people who go to Trump rallies are Nazis. And so it's pretty apparent the disdain with which they hold half of the country in.
That's not true.
Yeah, and then of course they all try to pile on him. Yeah, everything Scott said there was right. Listen, what is worse? You guys call half the country Nazis all the time. That's everywhere, constantly, nonstop. You do it on CNN all the time. So what's worse, that or garbage? So why wouldn't Biden call those people garbage? If you really thought that half the country were supporting Hitler too, and they were Nazis, well then is garbage, is that the offensive word now? Like, oh, well, they're Nazis, but garbage is just a bit too much to call these Nazis garbage. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Of course, and then the guy there, who I'm fairly certain was the original Predator, great movie, by the way. Yes, it was a stutter. It's a stutter, and it's about the apostrophe. It's incredible that they allow this level of gaslighting on TV, but that's all they've got, and their numbers and the amount of viewers that they're purging prove that. I would be in a depression if we only average the amount of viewers that they get on CNN. Guys, let's talk about Kalshi for a minute, and then we'll have a bit of Trump's reaction, because he was on stage when this all broke as well. I want to tell you guys about an exciting new platform called Kalshi. It's the first and only legal place in the U.S. where you can trade on the outcome of real-world events. Kalshi just got approved to list election markets, making it the first time in 100 years you can legally trade on who will win the upcoming election. On Kalshi, you can trade on everything from who will win the presidency, which party will control Congress, and even swing state outcomes. You buy contracts for as little as a few cents, and if you're right, you get $1 per contract. So if you buy in at 33 cents, you can 3x your money if you're correct, and you can buy as many contracts as you want. What's great about Kalshi is that these market odds come from thousands of people actively trading, making them highly predictive, better than most polls. And right now, the odds are showing some interesting trends in this election. It's also the only platform where you can trade on these events in all 50 states. And if you're one of the first 500 people to sign up with my code, deposit $100, you'll get a $20 bonus to get started. Go to kalshi.com/Rubin, download the app, and start trading on the big issues that matter to you. The election markets are live now, so don't wait. Okay, so Donald Trump, the man they believe is Hitler, was doing one of his Nazi/garbage people rallies at the exact same time that Joe Biden was in the White House, even though Kamala Harris was doing a rally only about 50 feet away, and he called everybody garbage people. Well, actually, Marco Rubio was opening for Trump at the rally when the news broke, and Marco broke the garbage news to Trump in front of thousands.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. Are garbage. He's talking about the Border Patrol. He's talking about nurses. He's talking about teachers. He's talking about everyday Americans who love their country and want to dream big again and support you, Mr. President. And I hope their campaign is about to apologize for what Joe Biden just said. We are not garbage. We are patriots who love America. And thank you for running, Mr. President.
All right, so there you get Trump hearing it in real time. And again, for any of you that have been to a Trump rally, or more, I guess more importantly, for those of you that haven't been to a Trump rally, what you see there is a celebration of America. There is very little about every political issue. Yes, he talks about the border, he talks about the economy, obviously, but that's not exactly what's bringing all these people together. What's bringing them together is they love America. Was there something on a hat that says something about that? Yeah, I think there is. There's a red hat. You may have seen it, and that gets to the heart of what is bringing this thing together, this unbelievable wide tent thing together. And it's so interesting that we then have become the garbage Nazi people, because you may remember when I was on Club Random with Bill Maher, it's a year and a half ago now, and I said to him, Bill, which would you have an easier time being at? Would it be a Trump rally or an AOC rally? And Bill even admitted that. So keep in mind, Bill Maher, Democrat, Trump derangement syndrome, voting and supporting Kamala, even though she stands against everything that he's for, he damn well knows that if he showed up to an AOC rally, he would get booed out of there as a genocider and an evil warmongering liberal or whatever they say about these people. And he could go to a Trump rally and he would be applauded. Yeah, a couple people would be like, it's Bill Maher, he's got Trump derangement syndrome, but that's pretty cool, he's here. And that would be it. So that when they tell you about who is extreme right now, hopefully you can use that as some framing for it. Trump then commented after hearing what Marco said.
That's terrible. That's what it says. That's what it says. So you have, remember Hillary, she said deplorable, and then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable, that didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right? But he doesn't know. You have to please forgive him. Please forgive him, for he not knoweth what he said. These people, it's terrible, terrible. Terrible to say a thing like that, but he really doesn't know. He really, honestly, he doesn't. And I'm convinced that he likes me more than he likes Kamala. Convinced.
That's just great. Even that right there, that's obviously not scripted. It's not in the prompter. He know it, not what he say. Like, it's funny. And he might be right about that last line. I don't think it is completely out of the realm of possibility that Joe Biden is so damn bitter. And yes, we can say he doesn't know what he's doing and he stutters and stumbles and all of those things, but he has some lucid moments. And it is quite possible that whatever's left of him, or however it's being directed by Jill or whoever else, are so effing pissed at Kamala because she is the one who booted him, along with Bari and with Nancy and Chuck, that they actually want Trump to win. So he doesn't mind going out there and saying this. Like, who knows what he knew when he was saying it? He barely has anything left up there. But it wouldn't be, I don't think that's completely off the chessboard, actually. Then at the rally that they were doing in Pennsylvania with Rubio and Trump, they brought on Puerto Rico's shadow senator. Her name is Zoraida Buxo. You know, they call them shadow senators from Puerto Rico because technically she's not a member of the voting Senate, but she is the senator from Puerto Rico. But put that aside for a moment. She happens to be Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico, and she's still okay with a certain orange Hitler type.
President, and we have some unfinished business to do with respect to Puerto Rico. And if there is a leader that can get us to a final resolution, that is you. That is you. So the people of Puerto Rico trust you, and we have high hopes. As many Americans, we need this man back in the White House. We need this man to be our commander-in-chief. He will make us feel safe, and he will protect us. Thank you very much.
Do you think that the shadow senator from Puerto Rico, if she really thought he was racist and hated the people of Puerto Rico because of a joke that one insult comic said 7 hours before he got on stage, do you think she'd be on stage saying those nice things, if nothing else, for her own political career? She still needs votes from Puerto Ricans, right? So even if she didn't believe it, but she felt that they believed it, she probably wouldn't be on stage with the guy. Alas, there she is. We'll have more on the crazy, absolutely crazy rhetoric coming out from the Dems. They keep saying we're the mean ones and we're saying all the bad things and we're haters and all that. And yet if you just look for a moment and peel away that very thin veneer, it is so obvious what's going on here. But first, let me talk to you about Rumble Premium. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions around COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Of course, Rumble did not. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked by brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech while Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers alone. They don't get much of it. So watching our show is the number one way we can ask for support from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with promo code Rubin when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin and use code Rubin. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us right here on Rumble. All right, so let's jump back for a second to Kamala's. They said it was her final close speech yesterday, a week out. Trump will be busting his ass. You just know it for the next week. We'll see where Kamala is. I mean, she'll do rallies, obviously. But she gave the big speech at the mall, which again, they didn't ask the President of the United States to go to. Instead, they had him on a Zoom call off a laptop. Think of the level of insanity that is going on within that party right now. It's just crazy. But here is Kamala ramping up the fear like only a Democrat can.
And those who came before us, the patriots at Normandy and Selma, Seneca Falls and Stonewall, on farmlands and factory floors, they did not struggle, sacrifice, and lay down their lives only to see us cede our fundamental freedoms. They didn't do that only to see us submit to the will of another petty tyrant. Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. People he calls, quote, the enemy from within.
Okay, you lying, you know what? He is not going to use the military against citizens of the United States. He's talking about illegal immigrants. That's one thing. Number two, I love how she compares our soldiers who fought and died in Europe to fight communism and Nazism in World War II. I love how she compares them to the gays of Stonewall who wanted to have a mimosa. It's just... They did have some reasons to fight. They were fighting for equal rights. Okay, fine. But nonetheless, it's not exactly like putting your life on the line to go fight in Europe against Nazis, actual Nazis, not pretend Nazis. But that's what they've got. That's all she has left. That all she has left in her, what they described as her closing argument was Donald Trump will be a dictator and he will come kill you. And it just ain't true. How do I know it's not true? Well, he was already president once, and actually he got the government more out of our way than you people. Over on the televised mental institution known as MSNBC, they are very concerned that they will all be jailed. To be clear, I'm for them all being jailed. I just don't think Donald Trump is going to do it.
It's not the same movie. You know, it's the sequel to Scream, where it's just that much bloodier. The trajectory he's on with his
Worse
thoughts,
actors.
the trajectory that he's on with his thoughts, his language, his health, his mental health, his cognitivity. I mean, if he, God forbid, is elected a year from now, Joe Biden is going to have the biggest I told you so laugh in American history. And that's what people have to think about. Not just the guy who throws paper towels sometimes, you know, and like, oh, that's funny, that's stupid, whatever it is. This guy is saying what he wants to do. You know, I've been sued once in my life, and it was by Donald Trump. And, you know, there are people, I mean, you're a journalist. You and I might be sharing a cell in 6 months from now.
They're going to jail people. First off, are you saying that they're going to have intersex jails? Men and women will be jailed together? That's not how it works, dude. If you want to be a dude in a women's jail, you get your genitals chopped off and then you go to the women's jail. So unless that man has a vagina, which is very possible, he's an MSNBC contributor, it's all completely absurd. That's all they've got left. He's Hitler. He's going to jail these people. He's using the military against these people. You do have to admire it. They are so deep. They're so deep in the mire and the muck of their own crapulence that they cannot get out of it. So what could they possibly say right now? Like if you were a relatively sane person on the left and you saw the tea leaves changing right now and you saw this wide tent Trump thing happening and you were looking at the early polling and you were seeing these traditional groups break, you might say, boy, maybe we really have done something wrong here. And maybe intersectionality and identity politics are not what Americans are interested in, because America was actually founded on the reverse of that. America was founded on individual rights and everybody being looked at as themselves and being judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skins. You might go into this final week going, boy, we might have screwed some of this up. Maybe we can nudge some of the messaging with Kamala because we still don't want Trump, let's say, but maybe we can do something there. But instead, he's going to kill and jail us. Now, of course, what they're really doing there, they do not believe that. Jen Psaki doesn't think she's going to go to jail. That man with a vagina doesn't think he's or she's going to a jail. None of them think they're going to jail. And they actually want Trump to be president because it will be better for them, for their views, if he is president. Because not only will they not be in jail, but they'll get more views because they will be opposition. But what they're doing that's really dangerous is they're endlessly using emotion. It's crazy emotion to keep people in this perpetual state of fear. My friend Gad Saad was on Jillian Michaels' podcast, and he talked about how politicians, and media people, these types, use your emotional system because that's actually more effective than going for, I don't know, say your brain.
In the context of the parasitic mind and in the context of the Newsweek article that's coming out soon, I argue that when it comes to choosing your president, and when that president happens to be the president of the United States, or the most important country in the world, the leader of the free world, invoking your emotional system rather than your cognitive system is a disastrous reality. Now, I'm not trying to be political, and I remind people that I'm Canadian, so I don't vote in the American elections. Unlike the illegal Guatemalans who get to vote, I don't vote because I'm Canadian, okay? Now, what's Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris, also known as Aristotle and Epictetus, because she is so brilliant. What is her whole strategy? It's joy, it's positive vibe, it's excitement, it's fun. Why? I'm trying to invoke, activate emotional system. Hey, please, electorate, don't think, don't be rational. Don't look at policies. When you look at me, you're happy. When you look at Ogre Orange Himmler, he's mean. He's cantankerous. Therefore, vote for me. It's fun.
That is really just the best. You know, I've met a lot of people while I'm doing this, but on the short list of people who can just explain it how it is using his area of expertise, he's just perfect. Jillian Michaels, by total coincidence, she'll be in studio with me later today, which will be up in a couple of days, I think. And what's interesting about her is she's been a lefty her entire life and suddenly started waking up, and now she is on the same path that Elon and so many of you and me and et cetera have been on. As for what Gad's saying, it's exactly right. So think about what Kamala's done here. Her campaign was supposed to be about joy and brat summer, and it's we love everybody and diversity and equity and inclusion. It all sounds great. You know my thoughts about the thin veneer when you peel it. What's underneath, it's pretty nasty. But so it's not just we have joy, and what are they? They're Nazis and garbage. There's not much more to the entire Democrat machine than that at this point, because if you were to look under the hood and use that cognitive system that Gad's talking about, people would be like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. All of the problems she's addressing right now are hot diggity damn, she's been in office for the last 3.5 years. She was the border czar. Oh, she was the one that inflated all the money by endlessly printing and blah, blah, blah. So they don't want you to think about any of the things. They want you to operate on you're a really good person, and over there, they're really scary and evil and mean. To illustrate this point, here is a spliced video. It's Kamala last night, that we shouldn't point fingers, and then it's Tim Walz pointing fingers.
America, for too long, we have been consumed with too much division, chaos, and mutual distrust. And it can be easy then to forget a simple truth. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It is time to stop pointing fingers. We have to stop pointing fingers and start locking arms.
Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
All right, look, Tampon Tim Walz, I don't think I've said it on the show, that's what they call him. He's a disgusting pig of a human being. He's a worthless nobody who hopefully 1 week from right now will just be relegated to the dustbin of history. Okay, he is a nothing. He is an absolute nothing. We'll have more on him in just a moment. But do you see what they do there? It's completely conflicting. So she can get up there and say, we shouldn't be divided and we should lock arms. Yesterday, she's calling them Nazis. Here you have Tim Walz, they're Nazis, Nazi rallies, MSG, Nazi. Every single thing they say is designed, guys. It's designed to deny the truth, to deflect reality, and keep their people in endless perpetual states of fear. A little more on Tim Walz. He's having a rough couple days here. This is from the New York Post. Tim Walz accused of pushing Chinese Communist Party official's daughter to the brink of suicide during storm-tossed love affair in 1980s. Made me feel cheap. And I thought he liked young boys. Who knows? Here's some info on that from Vigilant News. An explosive report reveals Tampon Tim Walz's ties to China ran so deep he was having romantic relationships with powerful communist officials' family members. The Daily Mail dropped a bombshell Monday afternoon revealing the Minnesota governor had a secret affair with the daughter of a high-ranking communist official during his 1989 teaching stint in China. The woman who converted with Walz explained what happened to them in graphic detail. 59-year-old Jenna Wang told the outlet Walz seduced her with gifts while at a #1 high school in Foshan, Gudang Province. At the time, Wang was an English teacher at the #8 middle school while Walz was on the staff of the nonprofit World Teach in China. Tim was very handsome. I loved his eyes and his big mouth. We talked afterwards, and he was very complimentary about my English, Wang said to the Daily Mail. According to Wang, they could not be romantically seen in public because of her father's position within the CCP. She said her father would completely disown her for being intimate with someone from the Western Hemisphere. Despite this handicap, their romance exploded behind closed doors. The Mail reports that they regularly drank tea, had sexual intercourse, it's funny they put tea before intercourse, and listened to songs from legendary British singer George Michael. We talked for hour and hour. We stay in bed. We had sex. He continued to buy me gifts. This forbidden love led then 24-year-old Wang to believe Walz would marry her and she would start a new life with him in the United States. Wang revealed that when the two went to Hainan Island for vacation, Wang confronted him about their future together. Walz had no interest in her other than to satisfy his sexual desires and told her she was more interested in a U.S. passport than marriage. So there you go. Tim Walz. Ordering #4, Diet Coke. Let's talk about 1775 coffee, and we've got more on the other side. Let's be real. Most K-Cup pods are filled with low-quality beans that are loaded with mold, pesticides, and who knows what else. Studies have shown that mold and pesticide residue are big issues in mass-produced coffee, and trust me, you can taste the difference. Stale, toxic coffee isn't the way to start your day. That's why Rumble's 1775 coffee is a game changer. Their new K-Cup pods are packed with single-origin, high-altitude beans, hand-picked for maximum flavor with no shortcuts. Whether you prefer medium roast, dark roast, or their mushroom blend with lion's mane, reishi, and cordyceps for a brain boost, these pods fuel your mornings without the junk you get from big brands. Now you don't have to sacrifice quality for the convenience with K-Cups. Head on over to 1775coffee.com/Rubin and use code Rubin to save 15% off your 24-pack today and power up your mornings with the best. I just want to be clear in case any of you are watching at home and there's any concern that I'm going to be canceled over that accent. I'm my own boss. There is very little chance that I'm going to bring myself into an office. Dave, you made that Chinese accent. That seemed racist. You're fired. Like, it's just not going to happen. I don't work for CNN, so go fuck yourself. Okay, speaking of CNN, they're having trouble denying reality, and they seem to think it's quite possible that a certain Hitler is going to be number 47.
Trump may finally get his great white whale. Harris versus Trump national margin. You mentioned that New York Times poll, a tie. That's actually right in the middle of the spectrum when we're talking about recent polling data. You don't have to look very far to find Donald Trump ahead nationally. He was up by 2 points in the CNBC poll, up by 3 in the Wall Street Journal poll. Very close races within the margin of error. With the popular vote, which we really haven't focused upon, a very, very tight race, John. Fact is, Donald Trump is very much in a position he could win the popular vote, which, of course, is something he would absolutely love to do.
And would be something very different than we have seen compared to last time and the polling compared to last time.
Exactly right. So I went back through the time machine, all right? I went back through the time machine to see where were the past 2 races at this point in the campaign. Look, Harris in the average poll right now is up by 1. Well within the margin of error. You go back 4 years ago, Joe Biden was well ahead of Donald Trump in the national popular vote polls. He was up by 9. Even Hillary Clinton was up by 6 points. So now Donald Trump's in a position he really hasn't been before at this point in the campaign where he could truly compete, and we can truly say that the popular vote at this point is way too close to call.
All right, so that right there, already bad news for Democrats, bad news for Kamala. But okay, is there other bad news for Kamala? If we went to, say, Nevada, would bad news be in that place too? Okay, go with video.
Check this out. In 2020, Republicans were only 33% of early voters. Now it is up to 40%. So in this big state with a big Latino population, a whole lot of union members, some warning signs, at least early on in early voting for Democrats, George.
And Rick, Generals John Kelly, Mark Milley have called Donald Trump a fascist. Kamala Harris agrees, and we have some polling on that.
Oh, thank you, George Stephanopoulos, who worked for Bill Clinton in the White House, and you're a Democrat operative who now somehow heads the news operation as a purported journalist over at ABC. Dude, we've seen through the freaking thing. But let's shift to some serious stuff. Well, that's just polling, right? So that's just polling, which definitely is heading in the Republicans' direction. And we showed you some actual granular stuff yesterday as it pertains to people that have actually voted already. And it's very much trending in the Republican way. However, I would never get too confident. You've got to vote. God knows what shenanigans there are going to be. And actually, we're starting to see some shenanigans already. Check this out. This is from Divisive Tweets. Breaking. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, Democrats are going around polling locations with badges posing as poll workers. At the same time, election officials keep telling long lines of voters to go home and come back later. I thought Democrats wanted literally every vote to count. It sounds to me like they are panicking about the strong Republican wave incoming, and they're trying everything in their power to suppress it. This guy's badge says voter protection. You can see an image right there for those of you on the audio podcast, which any reasonable voter would assume means they're a poll worker. If you live in Pennsylvania, they cannot deny you the privilege to vote. Remain in line and don't leave even if they tell you to. They want you to go home and forget about saving the country. We won't get a second chance. Peacefully and respectfully stay there as long as it takes. And there's more on this because we're seeing there's just some weirdness. And we should address it. This is from Vigilant News. Pennsylvania GOP committee woman and RNC delegate Val Biancello was taken away in handcuffs for telling voters at a polling place in Delaware County to stay in line and vote. It is unclear if Biancello was booked and charged. According to Val Biancello, the Democrats were discouraging voters from in-person voting on Monday in Delaware County, so she encouraged voters to stay in line. I was just taken away in handcuffs at the Delaware County, Pennsylvania Government Center for encouraging people to stay in line and vote, Val Biancello said. Bystanders were shocked as police handcuffed Biancello. And then there's more here, and that's her being handcuffed, as you can see right there. And it sounds like all she was doing was encouraging people to stay. Now here's video of a ballot box. So this is a drop box. Remember, these became very popular during COVID, right? So this is a mail-in drop box. So instead of actually going to vote, you just drop it at a random box that are often very unsecure and everything else. Here's one on fire in Oregon 2 days ago. All right, so that seems problematic. Have those people been disenfranchised? Will they be informed? How would the government know whose votes are in there? How often do they pick up the ballots? How many were there? Now, what's interesting about that is, again, mail-in ballots and these drop boxes were largely pushed because of COVID, right? Now, we don't have COVID anymore. You might argue we didn't even have COVID then. But putting that aside for a moment, what anyone who wants secure elections to have is paper ballots that are done day of, and then you can have a few little ancillary things on the side for people that are overseas and members of the military, et cetera, et cetera. But that the bulk of the voting, probably 90+% of the voting, would be done on paper on day of elections. The Democrats pushed for mail-in ballots. That left us with the results that we got last time. Now we're seeing that ballot boxes can just be burned down. Again, I don't know how those people get informed of whether their ballot was in there, et cetera. But, you know, back in 2018, it's kind of funny that Democrats have been pushing mailbox, you know, these drop boxes and everything else, because in 2018, there was a woman by the name of Kamala Harris, and she was very interested in in-person paper voting.
We are now pretty clear that we need to have paper ballots. People say, why do you need paper ballots, Kamala? And I say, well, it's pretty simple. Russia can't hack a piece of paper. Set up systems to audit, but also what they can do around best practices and best machinery. We are talking with them about the fact that it is probably best that you do not have your election system connected to the internet, because that will create greater vulnerabilities. And then look at where we are now in this year of our Lord 2018. We're talking about paper ballots, but that actually might be one of the smartest systems. Going back to, you know, a day when we could have something tangible that we can hold on to, because Russia cannot hack a piece of paper like they can a computer system connected to the internet. And we have a bill that basically would require states to upgrade their elections infrastructure, because guess what? Going like Back to the Future, best and smartest way to conduct voting, paper ballots. Paper ballots. I joke and I say paper ballots because Russia can't hack a piece of paper. The best and most secure way to conduct elections, paper ballots. Because the way that I say it, kind of half joking, Russia can't hack a piece of paper. The most secure way to vote, paper. You're right. And, you know, and so this is great. Now, it would be great if the Republican leader would put these bills on the floor for a vote.
What's funny about that? You know what the best way to vote is paper. Like, what is she laughing about? But that aside, yes, back then, around 2018, Democrats wanted paper ballots one day. Then they saw the opportunity with COVID. Now we have mail-in drop boxes that are burning. And of course, guys, the ultimate irony of all of this is the same people who tell you black people can't get an ID are the same people who wanted you to have a COVID vaccination card so that you could go to McDonald's. Emily Wilson, who I had on the show a couple weeks ago, better known as Emily Saves America on the Instagram, she had a quick synopsis of the irony of the situation.
So during this pandemic, I actually worked at a very popular restaurant, and we would force people to wear masks. We would force them to show proof of vaccination. They had to have all of them. They couldn't just have one. And we had to have the vaccine card with ID. All of that just to get into this restaurant to eat. And if one person in the group didn't have it, we would literally not allow that person in. And I just think it's interesting that all of that to go eat at a restaurant, and this is the same group of people that are now making sure you don't need an ID to vote. The same people that you not only needed an ID, you needed a vaccine card, and they had to match just to go eat. And voting seems a little bit more important, doesn't it?
All right, so you guys get the irony, and I would say that the Democrats at this point, it's a two-pronged thing that they want right now. Do I think they want to cheat? Yes. And would it be ethical to cheat if you thought you were stopping Hitler? Well, I'm sure there's an ethical argument for it. So that's one part. And the other part is they just want constant confusion in the elections. They want us to have election nights every 4 years or every 2 years, depending on what it is, where basically in the old days where we used to get a result and there would be an acceptance speech and a concession speech and we were all in bed by 11 o'clock, they want it to be, oh, it's 2 a.m. and now a pipe burst and we don't know what's going on, because they want an endless, slow destruction or slow disintegration of the system so that we don't believe in the system anymore so they can usher in what I would argue will be a much worse system. That really is the plan. Now I want to finish up with something that happened yesterday. It was actually shot, I believe, 2 days ago, but the video was released yesterday. It was my friend Ben Shapiro, who you guys, of course, all know from the Daily Wire, on with neuroscientist Sam Harris. Now, Sam Harris, who was very influential in my early wake up as a decent liberal who was fighting against leftism, fighting against identity politics and all of those things. You've heard me talk about when I watched him on Real Time with Bill Maher debating Ben Affleck, and it really was one of my light bulb moments that genuinely changed my life. I've obviously had him on the show a million times. We've kind of gone our separate ways since then. He is now a Kamala Harris supporter. Ben Shapiro obviously is a Trump supporter. They went on Bari Weiss's podcast and they had a debate about Trump versus Kamala.
So this is my original claim, Sam, is that Donald Trump is very obvious in his excesses. Democrats and the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris are much more, I would say, much more subtle in their excesses. But those excesses are no less dangerous for being more subtle. In fact, in some ways, I think they are more dangerous for being more subtle.
Ben, you can't use a phrase like no less dangerous. Hillary Clinton conceded in 24 hours. That is less dangerous than this continuous provocation.
Sam, I just disagree with you. I disagree with you. I think that the attempt by members of the media, by Hillary Clinton, who herself said that Donald Trump was illegitimately elected based on Russian interference in the 2016 election, was highly damaging.
How long did she say that for? How long did she say that for? Does she still say that?
I mean, she will. Yes, actually, she will still claim openly that there was manipulation that took place during the. That is true. There was manipulation during the 2016 election.
No, it's not. It's what. No, what she says. What the sane thing to say is that there is continuous foreign interference in our elections, right? I mean,
well, that's the double standard, Sam. Now you're proposing a double standard. When Hillary says it, it's totally subtle and fine, and when Trump says it in the most obvious, foolish way, then it's totally different.
Ben, you're just missing the relevant details.
No, he's not missing the relevant details. Hillary repeatedly, multiple times on Twitter and throughout the media, over the course of the 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency, referred to him as illegitimate and said that the election was stolen and a whole bunch of other stuff. They also had a sham impeachment. They had 51 intelligence officials who claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian misinformation. You had big tech like Twitter, old Twitter, pre-Elon Twitter, that banned the story, the Hunter Biden story, from even coming out. You had an entire machine that was designed to destroy Donald Trump. Sam, unfortunately, I would say Sam, as an atheist, he doesn't believe in God, but he believes that Trump is the devil. That doesn't strike me as a very solid position to stake your worldview at. They continued.
And then just final point, you keep using the word normal. And I think there are a lot of Americans who hear normal. And what they actually hear is situation normal all f***ed up. Meaning we've done normal politics a lot. And it turns out that things were kind of f***ed up. And Trump, things were not normal. And things in terms of actual day-to-day life, economically, foreign policy-wise, were less f***ed up. And so would we all prefer a choice between normal and not f***ed up and normal and not f***ed up? That'd be great. That not f***ed up would be a great status quo. But the reality is that there are a couple different operative levels of normal. And one of the things that I think people want normalcy from is their lives. If people had felt satisfied that Joe Biden had restored normalcy when he came into office with a popularity rating in the high 50%. And within a year, he had sunk those popularity ratings down into the low 40s because it turns out he was not normal. It turns out that he could say all the things that he wanted, that he could mutter whatever he wanted into a microphone. And Americans did not feel sanguine. They did not feel stable. They did not feel that him blowing out the spending, for example, or pulling out of Afghanistan, leaving billions of dollars behind while lying to the American people for months that everything was going to be totally hunky-dory over there. They didn't like that either. And so this kind of the reference to the word normal over and over and over to only refer to the behavior of the candidate as opposed to the life lived by Americans is the reason that despite all the excesses, some of which you and I agree on, Donald Trump right now is running dead even with Kamala Harris and maybe ahead.
I actually don't have to show you much more from Sam because it was just, you should watch it on your own and make your own opinion for yourself. But it was just Trump is insane over and over and over again. And the reason I wanted to show you the clip is not to dump on a former friend of mine and to shine some light on Ben, who's just doing a bang up job there. And by the way, what Ben said at the beginning of that is that Biden was brought in to be normal. That was the whole point. He wasn't a crazy bananas lefty. That was what we were being sold. He's not like Elizabeth Warren. He's not like Bernie Sanders. We're putting them aside and we're giving you old standard Joe Biden, been in public office for 47 years. Yet we got the reverse. So Ben's making a great point there. But I would say, the reason I'm showing you that clip is that I would say to the average liberal who is out there, the old school liberal that I think Sam believes he still is, what you are about to do is now vote for Kamala Harris. So you as a liberal are now going to vote for the most illiberal person on the planet, okay? The most illiberal president we have ever had. You are going to vote for someone that is for censorship. Liberalism and censorship are usually not thought of in the same sentence, right? It was the liberals of the ACLU who were allowing the Nazis to march in Skokie, Illinois, right? You are going to vote for the person and the party who wanted vax mandates. I thought individual autonomy and bodily autonomy was a liberal principle. You are going to vote for the people who have opened up our borders and let millions and millions of people into this country who often don't share very liberal values and probably aren't that big on atheists and gays and generally people who are, let's say, a little bit more open-minded. You are going to now vote, Sam, I'm talking to you directly, you are going to vote for someone who is at the epicenter of all of the woke stuff you purport to be against. So you're voting for someone who is for chopping off kids' genitals, right? You are voting for someone who fundamentally now leads a party that is anti-American, doesn't think this place is good, that is for identity politics. You are voting for someone that has destroyed the city that you live in, Los Angeles. And you're doing all that in the name of liberalism because you don't like Donald Trump, who is actually the most liberal Republican candidate we have ever had. And I would say that that's actually kind of sad and pathetic. And I suppose it does get you to a certain amount of parties still. And that's great. And I would say you know what, I will just tell this one damn story. You know what, I'm just going to tell this story one time. It's only coming out of my mouth one time. So here we go. The last time I saw Sam Harris, you guys actually know when this was, although I haven't talked about it publicly. I had gone to Real Time with Bill Maher the night that DeSantis was on. And I was chatting with DeSantis in the green room, and this is a year and a half ago or something already, and Sam happened to be the other guest on the show. So I saw him in the green room beforehand. We just kind of nodded at each other. We hadn't seen each other in probably since I had lived in LA, so probably about two plus years, something like that. And then the show went on, and I saw him there's a little after party they do after. It's about 30 people, little bar back there. And he was standing there, so I went up to him, and obviously we'd kind of gone our separate ways. And I said, hey, and I had a lovely conversation with his wife beforehand during the show, and who was great, and asked me about our kids, and I asked about their kids and all that stuff, nothing to do with politics or anything else. I went up to Sam, I said, Sam, I know there's been some weirdness here. Hey, who cares about politics? We've broken bread many times. You've been to our house many times, all the stuff. And he just would not give me an inch, I've gone off the deep end. Everyone that I know has gone off the deep end. Most of the people that that I'm associated with, everyone's a right-wing maniac, and Trump's crazy, and blah, 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 all of this stuff. And I kept saying, listen, if I've said anything, I always go out of my way to not attack you personally. I can be critical of your ideas, right? That's what we all do for a living. Anyway, we did this for about 20 minutes. He would not give me an inch. He was so damn angry the whole time. And then, I have friends. I didn't get into this for friends. And it just started striking me as really freaking pathetic. So I was like, all right, I've just had about enough of this. And some of you may know that Sam's mom, I admire Sam's mom more than I ever admired him, actually. Sam's mom is Susan Harris. She is the creator of The Golden Girls. The Golden Girls, which I think is the top 3 or 4 comedy of all time. She also created Soap. She created Nurses. She probably about 10 other shows. But The Golden Girls is the one that really affected me. Sam always used to say he never watched it, which I thought was so bizarre because it's just so brilliant and his mom created it. And anyway, the conversation was getting to the end. We're not getting anywhere, right? Like, I'm just being like, let's put all that aside. It's just nice to see it. It's just getting nowhere. And I said to him what I now think is one of the greatest things I've ever said to anyone in my life, which was, I said, as I realized the conversation was wrapping up, I just wanted nothing else to do with it. I said, Sam, I want you to know it's a damn shame that you never watched The Golden Girls, because you might have learned a little something about friendship. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I walked away. And I'm only mentioning that. Because I think in some sense, he probably represents the confused liberal in your life. If you're watching this, you have a family member who is still about to vote for all of the things that they purport to be against, who is still obsessed with a man who has proven himself not to be a Nazi or a garbage person or anything else. And I think it's because of a certain elitism. I think it's because of I don't know exactly what it's because. I think there's a connection to atheism within that, basically, that if you just believe in yourself and your own rationalist, there's no forgiveness in atheism, something like that. And so that's why I'm telling you that story. I told it once, there it goes. I'm sure I'm going to get an angry text, but it is what it is. I will say this. I did tweet about the article because I think there's something else interesting within that. And I wrote this, where now I've sort of taken the gloves off. It is what it is. I wrote, Sam's descent into madness is complete. Bari, and I'm talking about Bari Weiss here, far more interesting than him. Who are you voting for? Basically, every old school liberal I know is now voting for Trump except Sam and Bill Maher. What say you? And here's where I want to gently, and I mean this gently and with friendship and openness, say to Bari Weiss and whoever else is out there that considers themselves an old school liberal, that sees the evils of the left, that now understands how radically insane the Democrat Party has become. Like, this is your challenge now. This is up to you guys. Like, for the last couple of years, I've been screaming that there's only a certain set of people who can move electorally. The hardcore conservatives, the hardcore lefties aren't moving. The disaffected lib is the main group that can move, right? And many of them are. I have many family members that have seen the light, and friends. But I would challenge, well, I don't need to challenge Sam Harris. That was the challenge with Ben Shapiro. So we got the answer. But I would say to Bari Weiss and whoever else there is, and to your aunt, that you're still working on, or your coworker or colleague. Like, this is your chance. You're a liberal, you think gay rights are great, and you think feminism is great, and you think that children shouldn't be abused. Well, you got one chance now. And I would hope that you will take it. But I will not be surprised if you do not. Guys, we got a post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com in 30 seconds. And who knows, maybe I'll tell you more secrets. Let's see what happens. Okay, ciao.
Every time I go to a coffee shop, I want my barista to be liberal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want, if they look like a Zeezer, that it's going to be a good cup of coffee. Like if they have like an ambiguous look to them, like a pixie haircut.
You're going to draw a picture in your coffee with
a little picture, a cute little bear or something. And we're all God's children. We all serve a purpose. And I think liberals are meant to be baristas for us.